Chapter 56. A difficult choice. Eckhart, Myne. Summary. The blessing's aftermath, and what it will mean for Myne. Eckhart. Eckhart was with Lord Ferdinand in his estate when the ordinance from his mother arrived and landed in front of his master. "This is Elvira," his mother's voice spoke out, sounding differently from her usual composed self. "Myne caused a bit of an uproar during today's social event, and I am working to contain the damage. Rest assured, no one is in danger or was hurt, but it is imperative that we move quickly. Please come, or have Eckhart join us here as soon as possible." The three of them, Lord Ferdinand, Eustace, and Eckhart, froze and glared at the ordinance even after it had returned to its original form. They were just that shocked at the rapid turn of events.
"What did Myne do
Eustace exclaimed, breaking the heavy silence that followed. Ferdinand shot an irritated glance at Eckhart as if he was responsible for whatever mess had caused.
Today was her first day at the Today was her first salon, wasn't it? What exactly did she have planned?
Eckhart raked his brains for answers.
Nothing out of the ordinary, Lord Ferdinand. Food, socializing, and ending with what Myne called a talent show, where the guests would perform a song.
His master huffed out a breath and stood up.
Ridiculous. Whatever happened was enough to rattle even Lady Elvira, and she said it was urgent. We must investigate this at once and ascertain the damage.
Yes, sir.
Both his loyal retainers' voices echoed out in the room. As Lord Ferdinand sent the ordinance off with his reply, Eustace cleared the documents from their master's desk with a shake of his head.
"With the First Lady and our future ob in attendance, a commotion in a social event might be troublesome indeed."
We've got no time to waste. Let us go,
Ferdinand said. Upon arriving at Myne's estate, they were led to the solarium where Myne sat, tended to by her attendants and accompanied by Eckhart's mother. Eustace made a small sound of surprise as the three of them strode into the room, which, though splendid, was nothing to how it had looked earlier, before the actual event. Eckhart had been there that morning, right after breakfast, when Myne had taken him by the hand and proudly showed off her preparations. Everything had been perfect and beautiful, and the room had looked impressive then, as it was now, except that there had been a contagious sort of energy and anticipation in the air, as Myne had chirped all about what she had planned, while her attendants and servants busied themselves with the last of the decorations and other preparations.
You're a natural at this stuff, Myne,
he said admiringly at how she'd effortlessly directed her servants in their duties.
"Well, I have had a bit of practice,"
she had replied, blushing prettily at the compliment.
"so I'm still a little nervous. I hope they'll like it."
I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Eckhart had said. His eyes were then arrested by the enticing sight of jam-filled donut holes that one of her servants was stacking into a pyramid of sorts. He'd plucked one out of the tray the woman was holding and popped it in his mouth. The sweet tartness of apple-seed jam had exploded inside his mouth, perfectly offsetting the flavor of the fried dough.
I already feel jealous of that only ladies will attend,
he said around his mouthful.
Won't you invite me too?
"Eckhart!"
his tiny goddess had exclaimed in outrage, playfully smacking his hand away as he'd reached for another donut hole.
"Stop that! You know that's for the guests."
She'd ended up dragging him away as he howled with laughter.
"Seriously, I can't trust you around my Ella's cooking."
Maybe it's time you sent her my way, Then you wouldn't. Then I wouldn't bother you so.
In your dreams, she's mine.
She'd replied. They'd bickered all the way to the front door, where she'd sent him off with a small bag of treats that Ella had set aside just for him. It was a sweet gesture, made only sweeter by her curling her finger at him, and once he'd bent down so his face was closer to hers, she'd given him a peck on the lips before sending him on his way. As his high beast had soared high in the air, and the cool morning drizzle had hit his face, Eckhart hadn't been able to remember when had been the last time he'd felt so refreshed going to work, and wondered how long it had been since his heart had felt so light. What a happy morning it had been, and yet he glanced at the empty tables that were being cleared away and at the luxurious displays where her delicacies had been set out. Now only leftovers and wilting flower arrangements remained, and he couldn't help but feel forlorn. But by far the worst thing to see was Myne looking so pale and distraught, a far cry from how sparklingly happy she'd looked earlier that morning. Eckhart's heart squeezed painfully, and for a moment he felt like running to her and comforting her. He wanted to carry her upstairs to the room, hold her in his arms, and ask her what had happened. Had she gotten hurt? Had the noble women dared to be insolent to her? Did he need to hurl anyone up to the towering heights? Of course, giving in to his impulses would be improper and would only trouble Lord Ferdinand, so he simply clenched his fists and stood still, telling himself that it could wait until later tonight. Once they were alone and safely away from the eyes and ears of others, he'd offered to hold her as long as she wanted. Myne also had to collect herself. In the blink of an eye, she was back to her normal self, straight-backed and with a noble woman's placid expression firmly in place. She rose in a fluid, graceful movement and greeted them.
Would you be so kind as to explain what happened here?
Lord Ferdinand said after the greetings were over and they had dismissed all their attendants. Lady Elvira recounted the events of the salon as she had witnessed them. Apparently, it had been going perfectly, but close to the end when Myne sat to play the final song, a light had shone out of her ring midway through, and the light of a large blessing had filled the room before raining down on the attendees. Her temple upbringing was never made secret, Elvira said. So, once she finished, I closed the event immediately after playing everything off as intentional. I said a true saint was among us, blessing Ernfest with the bounty of the goddess of wisdom herself. For how else could one explain how gifted Myne is if it weren't for the intervention of the gods themselves? Eckhart's master crossed his arms in thought and raised an eyebrow.
A saint?
Eckhart's mother nodded. Indeed, her prodigious deeds are well known. I am not sure how the truth of some of her past has come out, but people know quite well, from her attempts to save the disgraced women of the former Veronica faction, taking in an abused young girl, employing several young scholars who had been struggling to find employment, and treating them all fairly, and even saving the children of the temple orphanage back when she was only a child herself. All of these things and more have painted her in a very positive saint-like light. Myne winced, but she spoke up nevertheless.
To be fair, it was the very first time it happened to me, Ferdinand, so please don't glare at me so menacingly.
Surely you did something differently.
He replied, tapping a finger against the side of his forehead.
Was it the song itself? Was it the first time you've played it?
No, of course not. I played it countless times before with Rosina. The song just turned into a blessing on its own this time.
But why would your song turn into a blessing now, of all times?
Myne paused for a second. Then she tilted her head a little as she spoke thoughtfully.
The only thing I can think of is I was so overcome with joy that I sent a sincere prayer to Mesty and Nora for all the new books, poems, and stories that I had just received. Knowing that I am to receive such a steady stream of offerings in the future, I couldn't help but express my appreciation to the goddess of wisdom. And then while I was playing, I felt like my ring was sucking up my mana on its own. I struggled to stop the flow, but by the time I did manage to stop it, it was too late. I think I should just take off the ring anytime I perform. That would be safer, right?
No!
Everyone else exclaimed at once. Myne, you have been granted a noble's ring. It will be unheard of for you to now take it off. Eckhart's mother said in shock. No, you must continue to play the part. Myne could not hide her grimace, a grimace that was identical to Lord Ferdinand's.
While I admire your quick thinking and I applaud your efforts in taking advantage of such a freak incident to further prop up mine, this claim of her being a saint comes with its risks. Are you certain you and your family are ready to take the responsibility and possible backlash?
Lord Ferdinand said in a low, ominous-sounding tone. Elvira's lips curled. She opened her mouth to speak, but Myne interrupted.
What do you mean, Lord Ferdinand? What risks?
Myne, Elvira continued, and spoke in a comforting tone. You may rest easy, and leave it all to me.
You must excuse me, Lady Elvira,
Myne said.
but I am well within my rights to know and have a say in all of this.
There was a brief silence before Lord Ferdinand sighed.
When Eckhart gave you that ring, he also gave you a letter from me. In it, I urged you to think about your future, as you'd have to make a decision sooner rather than later. It seems the time to make your decision is here. After today's spectacle, you have drawn more attention to yourself than is wise. Now that rumors about your abundance of mana are out in noble society, who knows who might want to take you for themselves?
But I'm under Eckhart's protection. Why would anyone?
Thanks to Lady Elvira and Lady Florencia's efforts,
Ferdinand cut in.
and because it was necessary that you recover your reputation after the salon business, your value has risen much too quickly. Noble society now knows who you are, and while your origins were unknown, you were still accepted to some extent. That was never a problem, so long as you were a low-born noble with good connections. There was a little to fear from others. However, word is out about your true value. You have an abundance of mana and have a compression method that will increase one's mana at an unprecedented rate. On top of that, you are at a prime age to bear children.
I don't understand why all of that would make a difference.
Myne murmured. Ferdinand also murmured to himself.
It's apparent that I shielded her far too much of the realities of this world.
Louder, he said.
You are exactly the kind of commodity that other duchies are fighting for at this moment. The shortage of mana is so widespread that it is not an exaggeration to say that duchies will begin to fight over you. Perhaps no noble in Ehrenfest would dare lift a finger against someone under the protection of a Linkenberg, but I wouldn't count on nobles from other duchies to have similar qualms.
Myne made a small noise and looked pale for a second before she recovered.
Is it really true what they say then? About the kidnappings? I heard whisperings about them at a tea party, but no one elaborated on them.
Ferdinand lowered his eyes in thought before he nodded.
It's true. Our duchy is blessed with an abundance of mana, and the effects of countrywide mana shortage can't easily be seen. But there are duchies whose commoner population is starving, and whose cities are quite literally crumbling to sand. Smaller duchies along the southern sea are now decimated, and Arensbach is in a similarly dire position. Our southern neighbors is barely being helped along by Ehrenfest. And while Dunkelfelgers contributes mana as well, its ob still has the commoner Werkestock population culled just weeks ago, rather than have them all starve over the winter. It is rumored that the sovereignty has done the same on territories it manages, and who can say how our Norman neighbors are faring?
Myne's face was white. Her face had a sorry. Myne's face was white and had a stiff expression. It was evident that she was disturbed by these facts, but was trying hard not to show it. Eckhart clenched his hand. None of this was new to him, but he had always thought that the problems of the other duchies were theirs alone, and figured Ehrenfest was safe. But now as he looked at Myne's pale face and realized just how unprotected she was, he finally realized that those troubles weren't so very distant now. Lord Ferdinand continued on.
Trafficking women and children with high manner across duchy boundaries has never been a greater problem than now. The castle is crawling with spies, and it is impossible to say who can be trusted and who might sell information about Ehrenfest to other duchies. After today, you can't be sure someone will eventually set their sights on you.
Myne glanced at Elvira.
Is this true?
Eckhart's mother nodded reluctantly. About the kidnappings? Yes. However, I don't believe you're in any immediate danger. You should be quite safe within your estate. Eckhart's gaze traveled to the glass walls and ceiling of the solarium in apprehension. Glass was always a vulnerable point when it came to protection magic. It would be difficult, but not impossible to break through at night and steal Myne away under the cloak of darkness. All traces of her and her kidnappers would be swept away by the torrential rains or covered by the snow. He shivered. This is an Eckhart line, actually, Patrick.
Oh, okay. She cannot stay alone in this estate unprotected. She must move into my family's estate. No one would ever be able to take her there.
In short, the Saint moniker is certainly not going to help you.
Ferdinand continued.
You must embrace it and become a full-fledged noble so that we can use the duchy's resources to place a measure of protection around you and pursue your kidnappers in the worst-case scenario. Or you could give up your current life and return to obscurity for your own safety. There is a villa I know in a remote region where you would be safe. As it was made with my creation magic, I'd be notified the moment anyone so much as tries to get inside. I can start working now and add additional protective measures to ensure no one who tries to break in will survive to try a second attack. You would have to retreat there until the mana crisis is over at the very least. Though, how long that would be is only for the Supreme Temple to know.
Ferdinand looked thoughtful, and a fleeting expression of exhaustion swept his face before he continued.
But keep in mind, whatever choice you make, you'll have to temporarily cut ties with your lower city family for both your and their protection.
What?
Myne's golden eyes widened in horror. Eckhart's mother protested. Lord Ferdinand, retreating to your villa would be no better than being a prisoner in the White Tower. Lord Ferdinand ignored Elvira and kept his eyes on Myne as if awaiting her response.
Don't make me make that choice now,
she exclaimed at last, unable to bear the weight of his stare.
I understand the risks, but you must allow me time to think it over.
Don't wait too long,
Ferdinand said, rising from his seat.
The night of Caesarea is almost upon us. Let me know your choice by then, as a dizzying amount of preparation will need to be made. For now, it would be best to keep a low profile and limit the people you invite to your home to those you truly trust. You should return to your room and rest for now.
The three of them quickly retreated after giving their noble partings.
Justus, Eckhart,
Ferdinand said as they made their way out of Myne's house.
I'm going to the castle to talk to Sylvester on business that cannot wait. You two return to my estate and finish what we had been working on. Justus, the moment you are done, bring it to me to the castle.
Yes, my lord.
Eckhart was hot on the heels of his master, but he couldn't focus on what he'd said, for He couldn't take off his mind of the last glimpse he'd caught of Myne as they had walked out of the solarium. She'd been sitting among the finery of her salon, still clad in her gorgeous party gown, but she'd buried her face in her hands, and while he knew it was imperative that he fulfill his master's order, his heart had yearned to go to her. After dinner that evening, Myne perched on Eckhart's lap and he held her in silence as they both looked at the fire and listened to the wind blow outside and rattle the window panes. There was no laughter or music that night, and while their meal had been delicious as usual, Myne hadn't managed more than a couple of spoonfuls. She hadn't brought up the conversation she'd had earlier with Ferdinand, but he knew that it was on her mind.
I'm so scared, Eckhart.
She finally said, breaking the silence.
What am I to do now?
Eckhart held her a little tighter and pressed a kiss to the top of her head.
You still have a week to think it over. Why not rest and think of it after you get a good night's sleep?
I'll try,
she said, and she lifted her face to him.
Can you stay? Please? I know it's not raining anymore, but with that awful wind outside making me think it's intruders wanting to get in, I feel a lot safer with you here. I might actually get some sleep, too.
Eckhart nodded.
Of course. What are the odds that she'll come?
Eckhart thought after Fran left the room. However, the thought that she might want to sleep with him was so ridiculous that he had to laugh at himself as he got into bed. Impossible. Myne only wanted a peace of mind knowing that he was around. She wouldn't actually... He heard a soft sound in the corridor. After last night, he could recognize the sound of her tentative steps making their way to him. He rose and opened the door before she could even knock. But, just as expected, Myne stood in front of his door enveloped in a shawl, hand raised as if to knock. But what arrested his attention were Myne's puffy, red-rimmed eyes. They spoke volumes. She didn't need to state why she was there, and she didn't need to ask for what she wanted. He knew. He mutely took her hand and led her to his bed. As she settled on one side of the mattress, he made sure to cover her completely before he turned away to blow out the candles. Then he climbed under the covers and reached for her in silence. Myne made a tiny sound as she came to him immediately and clung to him as naturally as if she belonged to him and he to her. Eckhart wrapped his entire body around her, and as they entwined their limbs together, he felt a riot of emotions at the feel of holding her soft, fragrant body so close against him. The desire to protect her felt innate and strangely natural. He remembered how relaxing it always felt when Myne caressed his hair, so he similarly ran his fingers through her silky midnight tresses, while whispering reassurances. He felt her tears dampen his nightclothes, but he didn't care one bit. They talked quietly, long into the night, and in the end, when he said he would support her decision, whatever it might be, she finally drifted off to sleep, still holding on to him, almost as if she were afraid that he would leave her in her sleep. He stayed awake a little longer, listening to her steady breathing, still caught up by the forgotten feeling of holding someone close before going to sleep. It was nice. More than nice. After almost a decade of living on his own, he realized just how starved for companionship he truly was, and just how much he had yearned for the healing warmth of another person's arms, holding him as well. Up until today, he'd been against taking Myne as a wife, despite his mother's insistence. Only a direct order from Lord Ferdinand would have compelled him to do so, for no one else could ever be able to replace his beloved Heidmarie. But he also balked at the idea of Myne being cast into obscurity and hidden away all alone in a remote villa. It would kill her. Therefore, Eckhart made his peace with the likely outcome that Myne would choose to be wed to him, and by the time his eyelids closed, he promised himself to do everything in his power to care and protect Myne, like he'd not been able to protect Hyde-Marie. Myne. Despite the previous day's events and the conversation with Ferdinand, which had quite honestly thrown her world into chaos for a while there, Myne awoke the next morning feeling much better after a refreshingly good sleep. She gasped in surprise, though, when her eyes opened and she found that she was not in her own bed. Additionally, there was a strong set of arms wrapped around her. She recalled the events from the previous night and felt embarrassed that she'd ended up clinging to Eckhart all night long in such a childish manner. Her face colored as she recalled the brazen way she'd come to his room and asked to be held, and suddenly she didn't feel like she could face him.
I should return to my own chamber before he awakes.
The curtains around the bed hadn't been entirely shut, and she could see that while it was still somewhat dark outside, morning was fast approaching.
Okay, there's still time. My attendance shouldn't be up yet. Let's go.
Easier said than done. She was spooned against Eckhart's body, and he'd surely wake if he felt her stir. But she had to try anyway. She carefully lifted the heavy, muscular arm draped over her body and scooched away ever so slowly. He murmured, stirring awake in spite of her efforts.
You're going?
Myne was surprised at how deep and rough his voice sounded. It was much too intimate, and she had to repress a little shiver at the sound of it.
I think I must.
Stay,
he said, pulling her close and tucking her against his chest. She was now half draped over him, and given how he was holding on to her, escaping was pretty much impossible.
Eckhart.
She half-heartedly complained against his chest.
Sleep just a little while longer.
But what if...
It'll be fine. Just sleep.
Eckhart said sleepily before once more going back to sleep. She heaved a resigned sigh and nestled closer to him. A part of her mind catalogued Eckhart's scent, his warmth, the solid feel of his muscular body under his clothes, and the steady beat of his heart. Yes, those were all things that belonged to Eckhart. Solid, loyal, dependable Eckhart, and which she would forevermore associate with comfort and a feeling of safety. She closed her eyes at last, and willed sleep to take her once again. The break of dawn would come soon enough, and bring with it the day's cares and responsibilities. But for now, she was content to just rest a little while longer. End of chapter. Chapter notes. Thank you to JC Fergie, Liz, and Masquerade for their help editing and for their feedback on this chapter. Nice. Thank you. We have Fergie here. Thank you, Fergie. So we got hugs, and we got sleepovers.
They're sleeping in the same bed.
Okay, yes, finally you can say that. This chapter, finally, yeah, but not before. Before they weren't. So yeah, we got people here. Okay. By the way, thank you to all of those who are encouraging. You guys, if you are enjoying the reads, and you like a particular way that somebody delivered a line, just be sure to shout it out on the chat. Like here, I see everybody is appreciating the work. Good job, Fergie. Good job, everybody. You guys are doing amazing. But yeah,
Fergie, you did awesome. I don't care that you feel self-conscious. You're a good Ferdinand.
Also, Emails is listening to us. Unfortunately, yeah, I was wondering where you went, Emails. Says Discord connection is eating a lot of internet data, so we'll just listen to YouTube. Okay. All right, well, I hope that you're enjoying it. Keep sharing your thoughts, of course. Yukihime points out their playful banter so adorable. So I'm trying to like do like a contrast, how the chapter starts, how the chapter kind of ends. I kind of get like Eckhart has a sweet tooth. Is my imagination. So I'm just like kind of putting those things in there. Fergie says in the chat, "Oh my gosh, leave me alone." No, we will not leave you alone, Fergie. You need to feel validated. You need to build up your confidence. Also, we didn't have that many lines, unfortunately, but we also had Eustace was read by Butterfly, and Butterfly has been doing such a good job lately reading.
I'm sorry, I was laughing at Fergie because he just said shy, dying inside.
Continue to embarrass him, people. Also, Fergie points out hugging is just body hand holding. Yeah, basically. Body hand holding. It's as lewd as it gets, right? Yeah, Teal, you did a good job, says hi. Remy says mine sounded so small and honestly. Yeah, so the delivery's been very good there. There's that kind of vulnerability about just being afraid, but also, you know, I think
she's so delicate and needs to be protected no matter what.
Right. So here's some questions that I have for you guys. Go ahead, Patrick.
Before you get into that, I'm sorry. One thing that you said earlier before I interrupted you for, you know, more shaming or embarrassing.
Strike
Fergie.
1, 2, and 3.
But Butterfly has been making some amazing progress with her reading. She's doing much better than when I first heard her read. So everybody give her a round of applause, please.
Yay! With practice, it's just so good. Yeah. That's why we always like go like, what's it? I like to have several people read the role. So, I mean, Patrick is like the one that will be the first one to claim Eckhart, but you can give him a run for his money, you guys, like fellows or even girls. If you want to read Eckhart one day, you can just snatch it from him. Just come earlier than he does. But as to like the rest of all the female
That'll
roles,
be a challenge.
we go like kind of like try to make sure that everybody has opportunity to read. Anybody who wants to read Myne can read Myne. Just kind of take turns. And the rest of the characters are just hoisted on. Like I forced them to do it. Like I needed a Ferdinand. I was like, Fergie, you were gonna read Ferdinand. So that's what sometimes happens.
Yep, I couldn't take them both this time.
Right. Yeah, they were doing a back and forth. Hi Remy says, the attention to details of touches and feelings is incredible, Magpie. I'm glad that you like it. I love reading that stuff. I just eat it up when I find books that have like touches and feels and stuff like that. So I like to put that a lot. So I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Let's see. Also, Yukihime says, thank you, Elvira, for saying what I was thinking. Basically, the White Tower, living alone in a maximum security prison ain't no life. All right. That brings us to the question and also says she was already dying of loneliness when she first moved in her new house. She won't survive much if she hides away. And that brings up the question. The question is, what did you make of Ferdinand's attitude in this chapter? And what do you think Myne will end up choosing?
One thing that I want to mention also about Fergie's reading is that when I read him with my own head voice, I really felt like he was more panicked and was like, you do this, you do that, yeah, this is what we're doing because I said so. But Fergie's sounded a lot more in character and a lot more reasonable and listen, I want the best for you, but listen, a prison is just a room. Just a lot more chill.
He came across more exasperated, I felt, than anything, because he's just like, what are we dealing with now? What did you do? Today was just going to be a normal day. I was already worrying about enough stuff, and now you hit me with this curveball?
Yeah, Ferdinand was exasperated, but again, his delivery leaves a lot to be desired, but underneath it all, he's really just trying to like figure out some solutions on the fly to Myne's predicament.
And Fergie captured it perfectly.
Did indeed. And by the way,
No, don't do it.
what? I'm gonna do it. Patrick, thank you for reading the Eckhart's lines. So like so soft. I like that. I really like that.
Yeah, they were so cute.
Yeah.
Eckhart is always perfect.
Damn it! And here I thought I could get away with embarrassing Fergie.
No. We're embarrassing you. All that soft whispering. Love it.
In case you haven't noticed, Eckhart is an entire sweetheart, and he has so many sweet and adorable lines. So sadly, Patrick, you're gonna have to be sweet and adorable.
Yep, you're gonna have to drop your macho man act and be vulnerable and soft. You have to be it. All right, so
And you have been. Until now, you have been.
yeah. So Haremy also
Until now.
Haremy also says, I feel like Murder Puppy is catching feelings with our gremlin with Patrick's reading. Oh yeah, the feelings have been caught. And he's just basically in this chapter he has come to a conclusion like if it's necessary for her to become a noble and for her to the quickest way to become a noble would be probably to marry. And if that's necessary, I will do it. And it's only because of her, because otherwise he would not have done it.
I will fall on my sword to save Myne.
Yes. All right. So there was another question. What other options besides the ones that Ferdinand presented her do you think would help keep Myne safe in these uncertain times? Okay, so there's two options. One, become a noble and, embrace society and maybe move into Elvira's house or whatever. Or also or being locked away. Those are the two options. Do you think that any other options that you guys might think about that would help?
There is adoption.
Adoption.
Though that would involve becoming a noble, so that's still the first option.
Yeah.
Well, everyone already thinks she is the daughter of some arch noble. The only thing is, with little clues, it's like Ferdinand gave her the ring. People are going to think that she's Ferdinand's daughter.
Well, they don't know that Ferdinand is the one that gave her the ring. Ferdinand made the ring. He passed it on to Eustace and Eckhart. Eckhart gave Myne the ring with a letter. So people don't know the trajectory of that ring. But of course, in my head's canon, in order for somebody to actually be given a ring, the Archduke has to know about it or something like that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyway, the point is... Oh, here's another one. Haremy says, maybe being recognized by the Zend. Ooh, by the Zend. Special.
So you could go with Fergie's play into the rumors comment and get it so extravagant that even the Zent has to take notice and recognize her.
Mm-hmm. Well,
does that mean the whole country knows about Myne and how valuable she is?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that would be. But you know what? It does bring up some pretty interesting forks in the road, which I myself considered at this point. We will talk about it at the end, but there was lots of points.
I kind of like Patrick's idea of just making her the most famous person in your neighborhood, so no one dares try to kidnap her, which
exactly
would be a
that's what I
really
was
hard
about to
play
say.
to do. But it's an interesting thought.
Where were you guys
Also,
when I was
like-
writing this thing? Huh? Yukihime?
The opposite theory would be to fake her own death and go into hiding, but not like in some remote villa of Ferdinand's, but like hiding among commoners, like he gave her the choice in canon.
Yes, yes, yes. Why didn't anybody bring this up when I was trying to do this silly chapter?
I didn't know you at the time.
This was what year? I don't even know what year this was. This was 2022 still. So anyway,
Well, maybe I knew you.
for better or worse, you guys, right now there's only two. I'm not saying that in this there will only be two, but in this fanfic. But for now, we only have two. There might be others eventually, but for now, there's only the two. And also another note that I put here. I know that there are many that want that Hartmut's short story. Rest assured, I will include his point of view of the blessing as an interlude. But let's finish part 5 first, and we are going to finish part 5 before we even get another Hartmut POV. All right, you guys. Let's head on to the next chapter, so we can see other things. Let's do chapter. Oh no, I have to set it up, you guys. I'm sorry. Talk while I set it up. I should have been setting it up while I was blabbing on. I kind of feel like, remember Rochester in Jane Eyre where he was bored? And he was so bored that he was like, okay, I'm bored, and so just talk. And at my order, talk.
Yes.
So now everybody, your Empress demands that you talk.
All right, tuberculosis sure killed a lot of people in early fiction, huh?
Oh yeah, and
Oh, wow.
it was terrible.
That is one interesting topic. Okay. I should have probably given
Hunt
parameters.
Green, is that you?
You should have.
Hunt Green, is that you?
So one thing that I noticed was that as soon as Ferdinand entered, she noticed when Ferdinand entered, she became the Evara type of noble that she learned. So I think she didn't fully accept not loving Ferdinand yet.
Well, I mean, I think to some extent you're never truly over your first crush.
Yeah, first love will always be first love, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus, there's that little snafu that Myne is trying to fix.
Oh, yeah, yep. So
Also, just like this boggles my mind just how little time like inside of the story is going on, like between stuff, like the time isn't really moving a lot, like.
yeah, this is just one season. This is the autumn.
Yes.
Yeah. So early autumn, that's when the whole fiasco with the salon happened. This is kind of mid to late autumn now. This was Night of Shutsaria is almost upon them in a few days, maybe a week or so. So yeah, it's the end of autumn, but it's still just one season. And that's the way that the story is meant to be. It's just going to be quick like that, hopefully. All right. So let's continue reading. I have everything set up here. Chapter 57, entitled Eternal Snow. Summary. All's not well in the world, at least not with Ferdinand. In the end, Myne turned her back on noble society and chose to withdraw from the public eye, distancing herself from the constant, stressful onslaught of trouble that would have come with her new rank if she had chosen to become a noble and marry Eckhart. After a flurry of preparations, she settled in the remote villa Ferdinand owned, and which he had until then only used as a hunting lodge. It was far from any town or farming settlement, and located so deep within the forest that nothing outside of Phoebes ever roamed those parts. The snow had ceased to fall by the time Ferdinand dropped in on her, and a gleaming milky moon, a moon that paled in comparison to the alluring beauty of Myne's liquid gold eyes, shone upon the small villa's snow and ice-covered exterior, making the building glitter in the night as if it were made of motes of light and sparkling gemstones. It was fitting that something so beautiful would house his own treasured possession. As he approached his high beast, he felt her stir within the villa. His heartbeat kicked up a notch in anticipation, for he was finally going to see her, his beloved, his goddess, his Geduld, whom he had taken great pains to hide away in the depths of the dark forest, away from prying eyes, wagging tongues, as well as any fools who sought to steal her from him. Snow crunched under his boots as he alighted at the front door and walked up to the ponderous front doors, which couldn't swing open quickly enough for him. He threw the doors open with impatience and entered the villa, confident that none of the deadly traps and other defensive measures he had installed in the palace to keep his treasure safe would react at his approach. He was lord and master here, after all. He knew exactly where she would be. He could sense her mana, and he could hear her humming softly to herself as she turned the pages of her book. With his senses fully heightened, he could even smell the aroma of her intoxicating perfume, a fragrance that only he, her lover, could ever know. And after so many months and so many encounters like this, it was only natural that these small things would draw him to her like a moth to a flame. He didn't know why, but even though this was far from the first time together, he began to tremble the closer he got to her. By the time he pushed open the door to the opulently furnished bookroom, where she spent all her days, he could no longer contain himself. Upon seeing her on the blue lounge chair, clad only in sleeping clothes and furs, he was upon her like a starving man, availing himself of her body and satiating his hunger and his thirst after their prolonged time apart. Elsewhere in Jürgenschmidt, entire cities had crumbled to dust under the weight of the snow. Seas had dried up long ago, jungles and swamps had turned into wastelands of frozen morass, and obs rose against one another, fighting over precious remaining resources. Meanwhile, in Ehrenfest, the cruel twilight of this eternal winter had brought commoner and noble alike to the brink of starvation. But what did it matter, when he could retreat from all the insanity and find peace once more in the arms of his goddess? Much later, when they were in her bed, Ferdinand reflected that the greatest advantage to being worlds away from everyone, and that the world was quite literally ending, was that no one was around to hear or even care that they whiled away the hours lost in each other. There were no duties nor tiresome responsibilities. There was no need to worry that anyone could intrude upon them. It was paradise.
I'm thirsty.
Myne murmured sleepily through parched lips.
Hungry, too.
Ferdinand hummed in reply, but did not stir from bed. He idly wondered how it was that after several days of being with Myne, he had yet to feel any of those things. It made sense, though. After all, he needed nothing else except Myne. But if she lacked for anything, he would do anything within his power to satisfy her.
You have everything you could ever need here,
Ferdinand stated, glancing toward the abundant spread that had appeared on the table in the room's sitting area. It was laden with wine, out-of-season fruit, pastries, and all kinds of delicacies that should have been impossible to procure, given the current situation. He chuckled, thinking about just how spoiled his little goddess was, as he recalled the ridiculously large bookroom he'd prepared for her, containing the humongous collection of books that he had taken great pains to procure from all corners of Jürgenschmidt, looted or rescued from the crumbling palaces and estates of once great rulers and scholars. Myne sat up with a soft moan. However, he could not bear to have her out of his reach just yet, so he rested his head on her lap. With a soft sigh, she ran her fingers through his hair and leaned back against the headboard. Her silence bothered him, though, and when he sought her gaze, he saw that Myne looked somber.
I miss my family,
she said in a low voice.
You said you'd bring them to visit me. When will that be? How long until I can return to Ehrenfest?
All in good time,
he said, averting his eyes so she wouldn't see the truth lurking in them.
Surely. You're not unhappy with just the two of us here, where no one can bother or interrupt us?
But it's not enough.
She said.
Not when you leave me for weeks on end. And even when you are around, it's still not enough. I still miss them terribly. I can't truly be happy or rest easy if I can't even get in touch with them.
Ferdinand felt cold with shock at hearing those words. He also felt hurt and somewhat betrayed that after all he'd given her, she still wanted more. Was his love and adoration not enough? Was he not enough? He frowned and reached up to squeeze her cheeks chastisingly. However, the moment he pinched her cheek, a small chunk of it came away from her face and dissolved to white sand between his fingers. He sat up and stared at his goddess in shock. Myne's face, Myne's beautiful, flawless face, started to crack, and in lieu of blood pouring from the cracks, small particles of fine, white sand began to seep through. Shock turned to horror when he saw the cracks spread and her form stiffen into that of a statue.
No. No!
The pink color from her cheeks faded. The gleaming midnight hair that he had loved to caress while she slept dulled and turned white. Her eyes, God's the golden, laughter-filled eyes that he'd so often seen himself reflect in, dimmed as well. As she lost her colors, he called upon every god he could think of. Feltrene to grant her back the bloom of her beauty and the rose of her cheeks. Leidenschaft to return the warmth of her skin and the sparkle of her eyes. The god of darkness to give her once more the glamorous beauty of her long, shiny tresses, and the goddess of light to rekindle once more the light in the liquid gold eyes of his beloveds. It was imperative that he save his Getuld, but no matter how much mana he used trying to heal her, and no matter what deity he cried out to, she was still turning to sand before his very eyes. He tried every magic spell he knew and cursed at the fact that his Scooter's hide was incomplete. If he had only had the complete version, he was sure he would have been able to save her.
Heimfleet, Frutrain, eventual, anybody save her!
But nothing worked. No matter how much he prayed, Myne continued to fall apart just like all those ivory buildings that elsewhere had turned into white sand. Weeping, he gathered her as carefully as he could, only for her to break into pieces in his arms.
Myne! Myne!
He yelled, consumed with desperation when he finally saw the light in her eyes dim with a final flicker. He found himself clutching at handfuls of white sand, what had once been his beloved.
No, Myne. You can't go. I'll give you everything. Do everything! But don't!
In the end, his entreaties fell on deaf ears, and he was left alone in the eternal snow and darkness as the sole survivor after the collapse of Jürgenschmidt. There was no sun to warn him, no moon to illuminate the darkness, no stars to guide his way and help him navigate the vast sea of white dunes. But what did it matter anyway? Without Myne, he too died in the end. Ferdinand woke up with a start, heart racing as an animal-like sound of despair rang in his ears. Had it been him? Impossible. But when he ran his trembling hand over his face, he noticed that it was wet with tears. The memories and the horror of his dream came crashing back to him, but he managed to stave off the cold panic he'd experienced in it by taking deep breaths and willing himself to relax.
It was only a dream. Only a dream.
Jürgenschmidt's mana crisis was serious, but the country hadn't yet collapsed, and Ehrenfest's situation wasn't as dire as in his dreams. Most important of all, though, Myne was still alive. It was true that she was alive elsewhere, and not sleeping in his arms and in his bed as she should so rightly be. But what mattered in the end was that she should continue to live happily and safely among her friends and her family, and her books. He closed his eyes and sighed. In his dream, with all its horrors, was fading from his memory. Yet he felt compelled to cling to it. He wanted to remember what it felt like to come home to Myne, to have her belong to him and touch her in a way he longed to do so. He wanted to commit to memory the sweet taste of her kiss, the lush texture of her skin, the languorous glide of her body against his, and how she clung to him when they slept together. He couldn't have her. This was true. But he could at least keep these fragments of her in his memory to cherish until the end of his days.
Enough. Enough.
He couldn't afford to lose himself to a mere fantasy, a fragment of his own feverish imaginings and deepest, darkest fantasies. He had something more important to do, and in part thanks to his dream, he knew how to proceed. He rose from his bed and summoned one of his temple attendants. While he waited, he sat on his desk and penned a message to be delivered immediately to Myne. Before she chose the direction of her future life, and before he went away to make sure that she and all those things he held dear remained safe, they needed to have a long overdue talk. End of chapter. All right. Let's talk a little bit about that chapter. Fergie! Fergie!
First. Fergie, how's your hand?
Not too bad. A little sore.
Oh my gosh, Fergie! Oh, my heart palpitations.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was signing up for when I said Ferdinand. I'm just like, yeah, sure, whatever. I didn't realize I was gonna have to read for someone who's having someone die in their arms. But
absolutely impromptu performance. Thank you for that. Bravo. No,
glad it read well. I hope I didn't peak everyone's mics.
You know what?
Headsets, I guess.
Worth it. Bravo.
Absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
All the praise that we gave you earlier, double that.
Yeah. I'd forgotten how bone chilling this chapter was.
Yes.
I'm fully reminded now. I shivered, you guys. I was trembling while I was reading. I was like, contain yourself. So yeah, that was Emmy.
Yeah, props to you as well, Magpie. All the details, all the feelings. It's so wow. It was amazing.
Oh yeah. All of the praise that we're giving each other, Magpie, you're the one who made this.
Yeah.
So even more praise upon you.
Thank you. You guys, I do have to say, I appreciate all of that. But I also appreciate the people that helped me with this chapter. I did run this by Fergie. I don't know why I didn't put it on the notes, but I do remember I was going with Fergie. He and I were brainstorming how we could do the panic of him praying to every god that he could think of. I remember he was one of the persons that were talking about this chapter. And then the final chapter was when we were brainstorming was with Fergie, and then the proofreaders was Masquerade and Liz, who helped me with this. And Masquerade, by the way, I have to do a little shout out here because Masquerade was also doing her own fanfic, which is The Princess in the Tower, in the White Tower, I believe. And because she helped me with this proofreading, it helped her to do a really pivotal chapter in hers, which also involved Yandere, Super Yandere Ferdinand doing Yandere Ferdinand things.
By the way, when are we ever going to get Masquerade in here?
I don't know. She is on the other the other A Sense of a Bookworm Discord. And also, I can't presume on her on saying, hey, here, join me here so you can read the stuff here. So, I mean...
Get in here, damn it!
She knows that we're doing a podfic, and everybody who reads this fanfic knows that I am doing an audio version of this. But whether they choose to join us or not during their lives, that's entirely up to them. Yeah. So, Yukihime says...
Another thing is that when I was reading it, like it just came out, and like I didn't have other chapters ahead that I could be like, okay, this is for the end. Like this could be the end. Like this could just be the end of this whole story, and that's the end of the chapters.
Yeah.
And that would be it.
How is that for a scare at the beginning?
My heart pumping and like just like tears rolling down bigger, like oh my god, especially like all the emotions, like what so much stuff. She just decided that, oh my god, and then also like oh my god, they're fucking, oh my god, she's dying, oh my god, what? I have to mention Magpie cut a very lewd scene, like just porno out. And
well, it has been excised from existence. Do not bring it up.
I haven't followed it. Don't make me.
We need to get the unedited version of this story.
If you want
we need to get this scene.
If you want the unedited version of this story, get to the AO3 and download it as soon as possible, because I am doing edits as we go. So by the time we get to reading the chapters, they'll be cleaned up to PG-13 or 15.
Oh,
PG-15.
So you don't want your mom to find out all the amazing stuff that's...
You know what? I have the power and I shall exercise it.
Magpie's mom shall know how dirty her mind is.
Oh, jeez. Don't. Please don't. She thinks I am a perfect saint. Please don't.
I guarantee she doesn't think this.
The human mind, I think.
So, we have
a lot of emotions in this chapter, and another roller coaster. Just like this is what I'm talking about your story. This is roller coaster after roller coaster, and like it's a whole high and down and high and up and down.
Well, yeah, last chapter ended with like wholesome, cuddly times, and then we have this.
So now Myne is dying.
Yeah, so we have up and down, up and down. So I don't know what's the next chapter that comes up. I do believe we have another chapter to go through today.
I think so.
Yes,
we got time.
So
an hour and 11.
Fairly short one.
One
Yes.
thing that I said. One thing that I said in a comment, in a more recent comment, is a few characters, no spoilers, just a few characters think they are playing 4D chess in this story, but they don't know that Magpie is playing Roller Coaster Tycoon with telenovelas in the background.
And let us not forget, as you continued in that comment, because I remember it, that most everybody in Roller Coaster Tycoon dies from a roller coaster, some tragic accident. So
Yes. So like this is what Magpie is playing.
give me some credit. I am a romance writer first and foremost, so somehow it has to end in like satisfactorily, like whether you expect it or not. How it ends, maybe not that way, but I can't leave it inconclusive. Like no, it'll have a proper ending. Don't you worry. I'll try not to make everybody die. Okay. You're afraid that everybody will die. No, that's not gonna happen.
No, I'm not afraid that everybody will die. I'm like, people are already dying, Magpie. You just eliminated a good chunk of the commoner population in a few duchies. Like, people are dying.
Okay, yeah, and
the entire country is dying.
Yeah, so I wanted to just kind of point out that from here on out, we're gonna be dealing a lot with the repercussions of Ehrenfest and the mana situation. Before this, I was just setting up this world, like just Myne and her own private relationships and dealing with that. But now we're gonna move a little bit more into like Jürgen Schmidt and how Eckhart Ehrenfest is dealing with whatever. We have learned now that there's a kidnapping situation. High-mannered women and children are being kidnapped all over the place, of course, to be used as batteries or baby makers. They're like the seas have dried up. If you guys remember from from previous light novels, and that the seas were drying up because the gates had been closed and there was a mana situation. So by now, all the seas are dried up, basically. Aaron's back is on its last legs. Workenstock, the whole population has been basically slaughtered, just because it was better for them to just be killed rather than to suffer through a whole winter of starvation. Yeah. So
I'm surprised that the other duchies aren't looking at Ehrenfest with their abundance and saying, "What the hell?"
Yeah. So you are. Yeah. They are. They are. They are definitely going to be paying attention. So, I mean, at this point, it's all a matter of when things are gonna go bad, not if. It's when. Yeah, because right now, Ehrenfest is helping other duchies along. It was helping Aaron's back. It was helping Frambeltag. And
also, Fergie's going back and reviewing his own vocals and critiquing himself in the chat.
Fergie, stop it! It was good. The clipping and that was the peeking and clipping that lent to the whole kind of like vibe of just like disorder, chaos, destruction, raw anger.
And everything scary.
It works. All right, you guys, let's finish today's read along. One final chapter. It's a very short one.
Oh, I didn't think we were actually going to read this.
We are going to get to it. We are. It's a short one.
Speedrun.
Yes, because we can't finish it on Ferdinand being sad. Or can we? I mean, we could. We could,
but that's your choice.
Yeah.
The wise words of Eminem. Snap back to reality.
All right. Let's return. With those words in mind, let us return, yes, to reality. Chapter 58. Divided Heart. Myne. Myne's feelings become ever more muddled and confused. The morning after the salon's grand reopening, she stirred awake, and for the second time she found herself in Eckhart's embrace. Bright sunlight was filtering in through the open bed curtains, and by the looks of it, it was almost second bell. They'd both been woken up by a knock at the door, and to her chagrin, it was Fran bringing an urgent message from none other than Ferdinand. While she should have been more worried about receiving a message at that hour from Ferdinand, what threw Myne into a mild panic was the thought of what Fran must think at having found her in Eckhart's bedroom rather than in hers. So she quickly took the message and dismissed Fran with a thank you, without ever meeting his eyes. It was a sunny morning. Nevertheless, it was very cold outside of the cocoon of their bed covers, so she wrapped herself back in the blankets and settled next to Eckhart's solid warmth. And for a few seconds, she simply inspected the exterior of the message and squinted at the familiar seal.
Myne?
Eckhart said beside her, his morning voice sounding concerned yet also gentle.
You're trembling. What is it?
Myne looked up.
I'm a little scared.
He looked confused.
Why? You don't have anything to be afraid of.
Myne smiled. In spite of the anxiety and nervousness she was feeling, it amused her to see how true to form Eckhart was. No matter the circumstances, one could always trust him, to have supreme confidence in Ferdinand, and that in his eyes, the ice-hearted man that still haunted Myne's dreams could never, ever do any wrong.
Right,
she said. Then she tore open the seal and read the missive. Eckhart turned away to give her privacy, but she decided to let him know its contents. And anyway, it wasn't more than a few scrawled lines in Ferdinand's characteristic handwriting.
He asks, that I set aside some time for a meeting with him. If possible today, but if it's inconvenient, then tomorrow or the day after. purpose is to clarify a few points about the conversation from yesterday.
Myne looked up at Eckhart again.
He was rather curt yesterday.
Eckhart grimaced a little, not wanting to verbally acknowledge it, but agreeing with her nonetheless. She looked back down at the short missive and traced the signature delicately with her fingertips, as she wondered what on earth could be so terribly urgent for him, of all people, to break with Noble Particle.
Is it okay if I tell him?
She mused aloud. She felt Eckhart scoot closer to her before she felt his arms envelop her in a backward hug.
Tell him what you told me,
he said, resting his chin on the top of her head.
Tell him exactly what you want, and tell him what solution we came up with. If you want, I can come with you as well.
Myne sighed and squeezed Eckhart's hand at her shoulder. It was sweet of him to offer to stand by her side. But she couldn't drag Eckhart into this more than she already had. It wouldn't be right anyway, as he was first and foremost Ferdinand's retainer. And if her meeting with Ferdinand devolved into an argument that she didn't want him to witness, she didn't want him to witness how they went at it and invariably ended up hurting each other. She put down the letter.
No need. I'll see this through.
Good,
he said, before pressing a kiss on her temple and then behind her ear. Myne squirmed in his arms and giggled, feeling ticklish all of a sudden. Amused, Eckhart tickled the shell of her ear with the end of one of her locks of hair. Myne yelped and tried to get away, but the only thing she could do was free one of her arms, with which she attacked him instead, finding out, to her dismay, that he was not ticklish in the slightest. In the end, the morning's serious mood evaporated like morning mist as they had their one-sided tickle fight. She ended up tangled on the covers and on her back while Eckhart assailed her with tickles, and she could do nothing more than howl with laughter until she begged him to stop. He stopped immediately, but did not move from where he was, sitting astride her, his hands firmly gripping onto her wrists so that her hands were pinned up above her head. Myne felt strangely exposed as she lay face up underneath Eckhart. She was breathing heavily from her earlier exertions, and her chest rose and fell noticeably as she caught her breath. Eckhart's eyes leisurely traveled the length of her body, and the way he seemed to appreciate what he saw made her feel warmer than usual.
Eckhart,
she whimpered weakly as she strained against his iron grip. At the sound of his name, Eckhart's eyes met hers again, and for a moment they just looked at each other in silence. Myne didn't quite understand what was going on, but she knew as she met his bright blue gaze that she wanted both to flee and to stay in the moment. She was afraid, but she was also curious and more than a little willing to explore the mysteries that lay ahead further down the flower path to winter.
I love the sound of your laughter,
Eckhart said at last, speaking in that low morning voice of his.
And your smile brings out the sunshine no matter how bad the weather is outside.
Oh.
Eckhart removed his hands from her wrists, letting her free at last. But Myne continued as she was.
I promise to take care of you, so you can continue to smile that way,
he said in a softer voice.
So, don't worry about anything.
Thank you,
she managed to say at last. Eckhart nodded and got off of her.
Well, we should get up now,
he said, extending his hand to help her off his bed.
Don't want to be late for our appointments.
Myne's world tilted sideways for a bit as she realized that, oh, gods above, she had spent the night in a man's bed, and all that fooling around earlier could have led to, other things. Taking a kiss, a hug, or a tickle session too far could potentially end up with them summoning winter. How much of an idiot was she? She watched as Eckhart fetched her slippers from under the bed, and then let him help her put on her shawl around her shoulders.
Don't be late for breakfast.
She finally managed to say over her shoulder as she stepped out into the corridor, only for Eckhart to call her back and hand her Ferdinand's letter, now crumpled after their earlier play.
You definitely do not want to forget this,
he said, looking very serious. Myne felt a cold wave of shock, but managed to hide it as she thanked him and took the paper in her hands.
When did I become the kind of person that forgets something as important as a letter from Ferdinand? Because I was having a tickle fight.
Her embarrassment did not end there. Upon entering her bedroom, she saw Rosina was already busying herself with setting out her clothes and accessories for the day, and she could hear Feline and Delia talking in low tones in the bathroom. Myne usually took her baths at night, but based on the sound of running water and the floral scent in the air, she could tell her one noble attendant was drawing her a bath, and Delia was preparing all the rinsham, soap, oils, towels, and the like for her. Myne colored as her attendant stripped and pampered her, but she did not bother to explain or excuse herself. Even when Feline discreetly gave her a special ointment to apply on herself, Myne still did not say anything. Why? She was a water goddess after all, and short of the sky falling around them, or the world going insane, nothing on earth could ever change the fact that her future with Eckhart was all but sealed. Nevertheless, after breakfast, when she had sent Eckhart off with a kiss and another bag of treats, her hand still shook a little as she penned her reply to Ferdinand. Because when Eckhart's presence was not around her and loneliness began to set in, she couldn't help but long and think and yearn. And no matter what she told herself, and no matter how many times Ferdinand had hurt her and rejected her, a quiet and persistent part of her still hoped and dared to dream. End of chapter.
They are so cute.
But Myne is still having hopes, you guys, about Ferdinand. Yeah. She still has hopes. She's still clinging on to hope.
She should have had that dream too in the previous chapter, and then maybe that would have disavowed her the notion.
She'd be like, nope.
He is very much a Wigglyb and wants to keep her all to himself, hidden away.
Yep. His treasured possession, if you guys didn't catch on to that. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to show you guys.
She's gonna get over him.
Yeah.
She's gonna get over him eventually. I am more hopeful than her.
Yeah. So another point at this point, there were a few readers who were so angry because Myne is like still has hopes. They were like, how dare she have hope? Blah blah blah. So
a lot of these people might not understand
like the reality.
Yeah, so she fell deeply in love with Ferdinand, and it's not something that you can easily control your feelings. It's just, they're your feelings, and you have to learn to deal with them.
Yes, I kind of wonder if like a lot of the people who were so angry, they're like teenagers. Because I did get other people who commented, and they were like, yeah, like that's how it was with my like previous relationship, like just couldn't move on. It's so hard to move on. And I basically wrote this one kind of like as a way to process some feelings. You never clearly end something. It just kind of fades, but you can't just switch your feelings on and off. and that's something that you learn. So I could tell, I could tell when I read the comments who has had a heartbreak, like a very bad heartbreak, and who hasn't. So I did remind people in the comment, like, P.S. Before bashing Myne, keep in mind she's still at that age where the hormones are raging. Physical attraction can make things really confusing. So she believes like true loves are like a grand sweeping passion like in the books. So emotions and feelings and all that stuff is just a mess.
Yeah. As someone who also never had a heartbreak, I would say that empathizing with Myne isn't always possible.
Yes. So just think about it as we head on to the next couple of chapters. I know right now things are like set in stone, maybe, but maybe there could be change. So be on the lookout. Expect some curveballs. So I hope you look forward to that. Just it'll be though on Monday. We will be taking it up on Monday. But if you just absolutely need to know what's gonna happen, of course you can always go to my AO3 page. You can see my the fanfics I've written, not just A World Away. There's others. Some of them have been completed. But yeah.
Also, while we're shilling your AO3 page, let's remind people to like, subscribe, and follow you here, and also follow you on your other channel at the Chattering Magpie.
Yes, follow me there.
And if you ever want to join us in reading, and we would very much welcome you all, follow her on Ko-fi, and you can join all of us on the Discord.
Yes, do that. Join us here. It's a lot of fun, if I may say so myself. I don't know. I have a lot of fun with the gang here, and I'm like reading this with you guys. It's like giving this little fic just a little bit of a new life kind of deal, because have kind of forgotten a lot of it. Because it's been like 2 years since I started writing it, but now that I'm like, oh my gosh, the emotions. So I hope you join us for more emotions the next time, you guys, as we pick up
going back and reading some of my abandoned fanfics from other fandoms, I'm like, oh wow, I actually wrote that? Oh, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, well, that's growth, small steps. So yeah, be sure to join us next week. We'll have a meeting. Ooh, very important meetings are coming up. So yeah, very important things are gonna happen. So do join us. Don't miss it. It'll be Monday at noon again. So until then, you guys, thank you for reading. Thank you for thank you, gang. You guys did amazing. Bravo. Also, let us not forget, first and foremost, we have to start with the thanking Teal. Teal, darling, you read an amazing Myne, and you also did the highlights. You continue to do the highlights for us, and super appreciate that, everybody. Round of applause for Teal.
All hail Teal!
Teal, highlighting Miss Theonora. Yes.
Well, I might have some help soon, so.
Ooh, yes. Yes, I was following the thread for the highlights, so I expect to hear good news, especially as we head on into Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my! What have you? You'll be like, what did I do? Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully
There's been 400 some pages of A World Away so far.
Shoot.
I can only imagine it'll be thousands upon thousands for.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so A World Away so far is 316,000 words. I don't know how many words count, but count is humongously
Only about 500,000, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, it's a long story.
Right. I look forward to those days. But let's continue on with A World Away on Monday, and we'll see when we get to count. I'm just reading the comments, you guys. Eckhart, his comments are giving me more courage. Right, Eckhart is very encouraging. Backward hug. Look at these freestylers, says JC Fergie. They are looking like a couple, says Hireme. The tickle fight, says Teal. Where is tickle fight on the flowery path to winter, I wonder? I don't know. I think it's like it's like half a step before mana mixing, but then they're like going back a few steps and then going forward and then going back.
They're taking some of these steps out of order.
Yeah. Tickling in
I just
bed
hope
is-
that Ferdinand won't ruin the mood for the next chapter.
I hope so
He has
too.
a talent for that.
He has a knack for ruining moods. Honestly, I was reading on the other on the other server, the official server, on the web novel on the web fanfic channel. They were like, "Yeah, I really like A World Away, but I hate it when Ferdinand shows up."
Well, that's how well you wrote this story, Magpie.
Yes.
Funny how he's her favorite character.
He is my favorite character, but because I love him so much, anybody that I love, I will absolutely traumatize or just yeah, I love to torture the people I love. So there you go. He's on that end.
And the thing is, your characters are very believable. Like from canon, your Ferdinand sounds a lot like canon Ferdinand.
And believe me, that is, I think, for all fanfic writers, that is the biggest challenge, is to get Ferdinand's tone down right, because I am so tempted to make him super like emotional, passionate, like Ricky Martin, like lover kind of deal, you know? But that's just not Ferdinand. It would be like...
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, like...
Ferdinand is so hard.
Like,
To the point that right now I'm thinking of putting in my fanfic tags of just saying out of character to like not make people call me out because I'm going to write him out of character.
you know what, though? We do have the saving grace, though, and this is how I always deal with me wanting to give Ferdinand emotions, is he can be as cold as he wants outside, but anytime it's his POV, all of his internal world is just feels. He's basically very emotional. He just can't process it. So I've said it before.
Inside, he's a storm of emotion. He does have feelings. He just walls them away from the outside world.
And because he and because he absolutely retains all those feelings, like we call it, he's emotionally constipated. All of that reflects in just him unable to properly connect with people and like it's so sad and frustrating, because he has a good heart, he has good intentions. Yes, of course he can be a little evil, but for a cause, you know, evil for a cause. But most people will look at him and say like he is heartless. You know, Exhibit A, Magdalena, she did not understand the man she rejected. But if she had just, you know, eventually, you know, maybe over the years or whatever, try to get to know him, maybe she would have been able to unearth the volcano that is Ferdinand. And I know there's a raging volcano in there. We've seen it. We've seen him try to eradicate a freaking deity because for the one that he loved. There's a volcano underneath that ice, you guys. Fergie, I didn't want to point it out because I read it, I was like, that's not sus, but I might as well read it. Don't forget when Eckhart was looking at her puffy eyes. Yes, he was not looking at her lewdly. He was looking at her in concern, you guys. I'm trying to make him...
Well, yes, but it was a double joke back to the previous chapter when a similar, you know, with the phrasing, it was
Yes.
just like, especially when you were reading it, it was just like my brain just, shorted out. I
You
guess.
know what? When I was reading that, I just kind of like wanted to hurry through it. I was like, they're gonna kill me. They're gonna laugh. They're gonna interrupt me. I better just not make a big deal of it.
You did
Yeah, but you have us here to ruin all that for
Yeah, all my plans.
Yes, and interrupt you.
Yeah,
Yes, and you every time.
I'm trying to keep a sense of decorum. Like this is romance, but we're decorous about it. We're mature. We're adults. Like,
Speak for yourself. I'm a child.
oh man. You guys, I'm gonna have to let you just have a breather. We have other stuff to do after this. Don't forget we have a watch party. So we're super late for that, but let's get on it. You guys watching on YouTube, join us over on Ko-fi if you want to continue to hang out with us. We are going to hang out. We're going to watch some stuff right now, and it'll be fun. Yay! Let's do this, everybody. So YouTube peeps, thank you for joining us. We'll see you on Monday noon or 1 or whatever.
See you then. See you there.
Bye, everybody.
Enjoy the wait.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.